Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa. I'm one of the student ambassadors here at Otonabee College, and we are back for another episode of Tea Time with Trent Faculty. But this time we have a special guest. We have the Otonabee College principal, Stephanie. Stephanie, do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Alyssa, so much for this opportunity. I think it's great that we get to know folks on our campus a little bit more. But yes, like Alyssa said, my name is Stephanie Muehlethaler. I am the principal here at Otonabee College and have been so for gosh now, just over 3 years. And I'm excited to share all my knowledge with whatever questions Alyssa has today to talk a little bit more about what I do and some of the courses I teach.
Perfect. So just to start off nice and light, do you want to talk about what you enjoy most about Trent?
Oh, it's got to be the people and the community. I've worked in higher ed and student life I was thinking about this morning, actually, 17 years, which like, oh my gosh, that's a long time. And I've worked at different institutions, essentially around the world, both in America and in Europe and in Canada. And I've worked at a variety of schools, large flagship institutions, small private schools. I've worked corporately in student life. And I think really what is so special about Trent is the community and the people and the students of Otonabee College, if I can be a little bit biased, but just the ability to really create deep relationships and strong communities, I think is so valuable and so very special here at the school.
I think you're allowed to be a little biased,
I am also just a little.
seeing as the position quite suits it. So what is one tip you would give to first-year students?
Oh, goodness. And that's a good question because our first year student body is so diverse, right? So this may mean something different to all students, and it's probably nothing, earth shattering, but really find something that you are passionate about and you can get involved in. And I know the level of involvement may look different for different variety of students based on like what the rest of your life looks like. But whether it's your academics or research, or it's a student club, or it is, a part-time employment position, find something that helps you feel connected, that you feel like you belong to, and that you're passionate about, because that will help this experience be so much more fruitful and so much more rewarding. So I would say get involved and find something that you are passionate about, and we can help you with that.
Otonabee College, like we say, is always there for you.
Yes.
So seeing as the position you're in, how you're really involved with the OC community and in general, the Trent community, how would you want your students or the students of OC, students of Trent, to describe you to other people?
Oh my goodness. It's so interesting. Yeah, you can let me know, those of you that watch. You try your hardest to put out there what you want, but you don't know unless you ask, how you're being perceived. So I hope I'm being perceived as someone who is like open and caring. I'm pretty transparent, that what you see is what you get with me. I don't know how to be any other way, which can be a double-edged sword. But I hope they see somebody who cares deeply about the community here and, the opportunities we have. Somebody working on it, but that listens more than speaks, and truly listens, not listens to respond, and that cares about community development and helping anyone in the community feel like they matter and they belong. I hope that folks feel that I'm a safe person to go to, that somebody will advocate for them, and like I said, truly listen. That is my hope. Let me know. I'm open to feedback.
I'm sure it'll be nothing but positive feedback. So
you said I rate my professor. We'll see.
So you said that you were the OC principal, but do you have any other roles here on campus?
Sure. So one of the other roles outside of the things I do within the OC principal role is I also teach. And so is that okay if I go into that?
Of course it is.
Okay. So as a principal, most of the principals teach one of the UNIV 1000 classes. So we are in our second year of these courses, and this is a for first year students to take a class with less than 20 students, seminar style. So really quite different than like being packed into WenJack type of thing. And it's kind of twofold. It really helps introduce students to the Trent community, to post-secondary, to all the different resources we have available, and also kind of the academic rigor that we have at university through, exposing you to a variety of different assignments. And it's done through a topic of interest to the principal. So I do leadership, and the idea of like, we need to unpack and reinvent our understanding of what leadership is. Christine does the philosophy around food. Melanie does something in and around capitalism. Tina does something in around the environment. Scott Henderson at Durham does pop culture. So really getting those students to have a very different experience. And then I also teach in the Masters of Education program. So my doctorate is in higher education leadership. And so I've taught a couple classes there. I've taught one on educational leadership. I have done a couple independent reading courses on student development theory. And I'm currently facilitating the learning that is happening in a course called Educational Leadership in the Time of Crisis. So not just COVID, but crisis as a whole, and how does leadership show up? And that is just, it's been the best. So I really actually love getting together on Tuesday nights for 3 hours with these students. So I do teach on the side.
So students, what you're hearing is look for these courses. You'll have a great leader.
Hopefully, learning every day.
So now that we see how full your plate is on a daily basis, is there any non-academic projects you're working on? Any personal projects, whether it be through the academia field or whether it be in the OC field or personal field?
I am I really do like course development. So this educational leadership and crisis is a new class. So I really like curriculum development. I'm not doing any specific research at the moment. I am going to be embarking on a maternity leave. I hope that's okay. Right. So another personal project and a wedding. So it's a busy year next year. But in terms of those would be the personal projects that I'm participating in. But I'm not reading or reading and research, writing and doing any research tied to my research interests at the moment, because there's a lot of other life about to happen.
Building a baby and building a marriage are two big projects.
Yes. two big projects. But yeah, I have hobbies, like I work out and knit and read for pleasure and all that other stuff, but nothing tied to the research.
That's okay. Well, hopefully in the future we can see.
Yes, hopefully. Totally. Once I get back. Yes, for sure.
So seeing as you're in a position that you hear and you give so much good advice to students, what's the best advice you've ever received personally?
Ooh, okay. So this is gonna sound harsh. When I was doing my graduate assistantship in my grad program, so I went to the University of Connecticut in the States, between Boston and New York. And I was working in an office called Senior Transition and Engagement Programs. I do context for those of you that don't know me, so deal with it. And so I was working on an event that celebrates students graduating in December, because a lot of focus is putting on those that graduate in April, and we have the spring convocation in June, and so on and so forth. And so I worked so hard on this event, and I had some great resources. So I, had roses dyed the Yukon blue. I had individual invites. I had it catered to the max. And we had a snowstorm and not so many students showed up. And I was pretty devastated. And I thought the success of my program was just abysmal, because I'd spent a pretty penny on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember my boss at the time, who was still one of my, probably the best supervisor I've ever had, and so developmental, so wonderful. I was in there complaining and literally having a pity party. And he told me to get over myself. And I remember, so it's more like critical feedback than advice. But I was shocked. I was like, how dare you? I spent all this time, and he's like, Stephanie, you need to get over yourself. Who was this for? And so, I said this, and again, probably 100 students showed up, but we had hoped like 300 or 400 that had registered and so on. And he said, did they have a good time? And I said, well, yeah, they felt like somebody cared and it mattered and we celebrated. He's like, so maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's about their experience and what you were able to create for them. And like, it just, in that moment, I didn't quite get it, but like, I still go back to that. And it's been, that's 2008, right? So it's been, gosh knows what, 12 years ago or whatever, like 14 years ago. And I still go back to that when I like play the woe is me card on something that's going on. I'm like, okay, so maybe it wasn't the best use of money all the time, but who is it really about? Like, who are we doing this for? And like, maybe I need to park my ego for a hot minute. So I tell myself to get over myself. And I still think it's like the best advice I've ever gotten, because he truly cared about who I was. And we had built that trust and that vulnerability that he could be honest. So I bet you weren't expecting that, but the best advice I've ever gotten was to get over myself.
Hey, you know what? If students come into the office, you just tell them, get over yourself, and maybe it'll resonate.
We'll see where they're at.
Maybe it'll resonate the same way.
Yes, yeah.
So what made you decide to get into this kind of leadership position?
Do you mean like student affairs or just like Trent? Yeah, so I am, for all intents and purposes, like a first gen kid. My parents went to university in Europe and I'm an immigrant. And so it's very different over there. So when we moved over here, while they have a university education, again, very, very different. So and I'm the oldest, and they didn't know, how to help best support me. They were just like, let me know where you end up at school. And again, prior like web, hardcore websites and all the social media and all that. So I ended up at Laurier. I was studying English and psych because I like to read and I liked people. And I didn't know, to read the academic calendar and see what programs were available and all that. Would I have done something different? Maybe. But I was super involved, and shockingly. So I was like an orientation week leader. I was in 17 different clubs. I had decent grades. I would have done better if I had, spent more time in class. But I was very, very involved. And after I graduated, as you can imagine, back in 2005, a job didn't magically land in my lap. It was like some of my business friends who had done co-ops and had secured positions well before graduating. And so I did, I was pretty independent. I did a variety of things. I worked on a cruise ship. I worked at a sports camp in Switzerland. I recruited for Laurier, which was awesome. Like you just get paid to brag about your school. That's great. But after a couple years, I was just doing contract after contract. And I went to go see the Dean of Students at Laurier, who is a man who is pivotal in this field, David McMurray. And I said to him, like, what do I do with my life? Kind of like therapy, sitting on the couch type of deal. And he said, well, you're the camp counselor, you're super involved. Have you ever thought about pursuing a career in student life? Which I don't think in Canada, there's a degree on. Some schools in the States have classes around student affairs. And I said, well, what is that? He talked about like the development of student resources, the psychology behind students, different functional areas of how we help support and educate students, which sounded awesome. And I said, okay, how do I do that? He said, you go to America. And I said, okay, because I was just a sponge. And so I ended up at the University of Connecticut working in different offices in student life, and have been in the field ever since, working in, residence life, student conduct, orientation, sexual health, the whole, now in the world of principal, which is all kind of student life put together. But I just wanted to build relationships and to have an impact and to learn every single day and to be humbled, which working with students allows you to be every single day. So that's how I got here. And I'm at Trent because the previous position I had sounded cool and sounded different. It was director of colleges, and I was living in Toronto at the time. And I just thought, I'd been to Peterborough and I was like, I could live here. I'm a farm girl. And I thought, sounds neat, collegiate institution, what's that? And applied, got the job, and was restructured. And now we're here in Otonabee. And
You've been hooked ever since.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. 3.5 years later.
Well, that sounds awesome. So what I'm really hearing is students take every opportunity, and if you need advice, Stephanie's got it.
Totally. And if you're like, I didn't know I could get a master's degree in student life, like, yes, you can, even a doctorate. So yes.
So Stephanie, I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
Before we end today, I just want you to leave students with one thing that you want them to know about you.
Oh gosh. I could be like super quirky and tell you like I love crime dramas and things like that. Maybe it's not about me like random stuff, but just I think getting the opportunity to work with and learn from students is like the best blessing experience that I get to have. You're the best teachers. And so I will forever be indebted to all the life lessons you teach me. And yeah, I think I'm just a quirky individual who has found a community here in OC where you don't have to change who you are to matter and to belong. And so I hope I can do that for all of you.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Tea Time with Trent Faculty. And students, whether you're incoming, current, or if you're alumni, swing by the office and come have a coffee with Steph.
Yes, I'll pay for it.
Thank you,
Thanks
Steph.
so much, Alyssa.